Hey guys. Okay, so I should have the mic working this time. Welcome back to my YouTube channel and welcome to Chat with the Author Live. And I certainly hope that you can hear me this week. I do see green at the bottom there, so I am assuming that you will be able to hear me since I do have the green right here. So if you are here, please do say hello. Um, I am looking at the chat here. Please put something in the chat, say hello, say where you're watching this from. And this is something I'm going to do every 2 weeks. I do see the green bar moving. So I'm getting a little nervous because I don't know if you tried to tune in last week and there was a completely silent live stream because I'm really trying to plug in my Rode Pod Mic USB and use it with YouTube Studio Live. And it's just not working. So I am here with my webcam with the webcam audio as well. So that is what I am using. And I did test it with my MacBook Pro first to see if it would work. So I'm going to say put something in the chat if you can hear me. And that is much appreciated if you put something in the chat if you can actually hear me. Like I said, I see green. So usually green is a great sign. So I'm here today, and what I'm going to do each week, or every other week rather, and I'm probably going to move this to Tuesday nights, is I'm going to do question and answer about any of my 12 published books. So a Q&A. I've put together some questions that people ask me a lot, actually. And I'm not going to address all the questions here. I'm going to address a few questions here. And as I get more engagement with these live streams, I'm going to then answer your questions and answer more questions. And again, if you are joining me now, I want to welcome you here and thank you for joining me. And also, please put something in the chat so I know that you're here and that you can hear me. Okay, so with no further ado, for those of you that are new and watching this on replay, just know that I'm the author of 12 published books on health, wellness, spirituality, twin flames, self-love, self-realization, and anything and everything that I write about is game for questions here on the live stream, the Chat with the Author Q&A. So we're going to get started, and I'm going to answer about 6 questions. This is what I did when the live stream was silent and I didn't realize it was silent. I really need to figure out how to use the Rode mic. Even though I'm selecting it, for some reason, the sound is not coming through. So we're going to start with the first question, which is, do all twin flames reunite in this lifetime? So that is the first question here. Do all twin flames reunite in this lifetime? So the answer to that question is yes and no, if you will. Yes and no. It was always my belief. I was always under the impression that if you met a twin flame in this lifetime and you physically met, you had a face-to-face awakening, and you know them on some level, whether or not they're a good friend, whether you dated briefly, had a situationship or a relationship. It was always my belief that you would come back together in this lifetime. I held that belief for about the first 3 years of my twin flame journey. And then later, I modified that a little bit. So what I came to realize through talking with many twin flames, through angelic guidance, was that twin flames do not 100% always reunite in this lifetime. And here's why. We have free will. We have a free will choice to follow our life path and follow our soul contracts or not, right? We have free will choice to do that or to not do that. And so, even if you as a twin flame are working on your individual spiritual journey, your awakening journey, and moving through all of the self sabotaging beliefs, your inner child work, you're doing all the things that you feel is right for you as a soul to move forward in your life. It does not mean that your twin flame divine counterpart is going to use their free will to make those same choices. And so that is why I say that it happens. It happens a lot. Believe me, I have many twin flames that I have coached who have come into full reunion with their twin flame. It has happened and it's still happening. But does that mean that it's 100% everyone? I would say my answer now is not in this lifetime. What would that mean for a future lifetime? It might mean that you would repeat certain lessons in a subsequent lifetime. You would reactivate that soul contract in order to come into full union. So there you go. But you can have the integration of the souls without being physically together. And I write about that in my book, Twin Flame Union. So there you go. Okay, so the next question that comes to me a lot is about the chakras. And the question that comes to me about the chakras is, if I only focus on one chakra, what would it be? Like if I'm learning the chakra system, if I'm learning about the 7 main chakras, then what would that chakra be? And my answer is the root chakra. The root chakra is the first of the 7 main chakras. The root chakra sits at the base of the spine. It is responsible for our sense of security, having our basic needs met, having our basic physical and emotional needs met. And what I say is that this is a great chakra to focus on if you're new to the chakra system, if you're not sure where to start. This is a great one to focus on. And I touched a little upon this in the video I posted on Friday of this week. If you're watching this Thanksgiving week of 2025, I touched a little on this when I talked about using the chakra system as a tool for transcendence. So I explained why it's essential to start with the first 3 chakras, which are the base, the sacral, and the solar plexus chakra. So why do I say that if you were only to focus on one, what would it be? It would be the root chakra. And it's because most of us are very ungrounded in this life. We tend to live without rooting ourselves on earth. We tend to be very connected to our devices. We tend to be very connected to the virtual world or the world that is not so physical. And since that may be the case, it unroots us, right? We're more in the airwaves, right? The communication that is going through the airwaves or through the space and time waves, but we're not so rooted in this physical life. And a lot of people wonder, why am I having issues with abundance or having my basic needs met? And one of the reasons is being ungrounded, right? In order to receive, in order to be here now and to feel this life, you really need to have that grounding first. And that's really the main reason. Okay, so let's go on to the next question. And that next question is going to come from, oh, wow. How do I start meditating when my mind never stops? And this is from my books, Heal Yourself and Return to Wholeness and the 8 Limbs of Yoga for Modern Times. And if you're joining me now, hello and welcome. Please put something in the comments below. Say where you're watching from. Say if you can hear me. That would be amazing based on last week's experience. And I know that I'm able to be heard just because I have the green lines on the YouTube studio, and that's generally how it works. If there are green lines, then that means the mic is working properly. So how do I start meditating when my mind never stops? This is a question I get all of the time. I always get this question when there are new meditators, when there are people that want to meditate or they're on their spiritual journey and they're like, my mind is crazy. You're not in my brain. I think 10,000 thoughts. And my answer to you is start small. Like, start small. If you are a new meditator and you're still uncertain as to whether or not meditation will work for you, start small. Start with 1 minute of observing your breath and take it up to 5 minutes of observing your breath. Just observe. You don't even have to do anything. Just sit in silence and observe your breath in and out. Your breath is constantly moving. Just observe it. Don't try to control it or manipulate it or make it go faster or slower. Just observe the breath. So sitting back, relaxing, and observing the breath. And that's a great place to start. If you want to then move up to guided meditations, which YouTube is plentiful with guided meditations, and there are meditation apps you can use as well. And when you begin to trust yourself that you can calm down for a few minutes through breath observation, through guided meditations, then you can take it to the next level. The next level would be doing a silent mantra-based meditation technique, such as the one that I teach, which I teach primordial sound meditation. My course is called Immersion into Meditation, but it's a way in which you can start to quiet the mind with a specific mantra. And so I always say a mantra-based meditation practice is the gold standard for getting you to sit quietly. But again, if that is not where you are at, always start with breath observation. And that is a great way to quiet the mind. But let me tell you a little secret here. A lot of people are under the misconception that you need to stop all thought in order to be successful in meditation. Nothing can be further from the truth. You do not need to stop all thought in order to be successful in meditation. You just need to lower the number of thoughts and have something that anchors you in while you're meditating. That anchor would be a mantra, as an example, right? You could also do the flickering of a candle, or you could just have a focal point of some sort, but you're not going to stop thought altogether. Otherwise, you'd be very dead, right? Because if you think about it, even using a mantra for a meditation practice is a thought, right? You need to think the mantra. So that is a thought. It's just a focused thought. So there you go. We're going to continue on here. And again, if you're joining me here today, please say hello in the chat box and let me know if you have any questions about spirituality, spiritual awakening, twin flames, self-love, codependency, alcoholism and addiction, recovery. If you have questions about yoga philosophy, Eastern philosophy, the chakra system, I can help you and answer any of those if it's within my realm of understanding. Okay, so let's look at, oh, this is a big one. This is a huge one. How do I set boundaries without feeling guilty? Oh my gosh, this is a huge one. If you have had issues in setting boundaries and keeping those boundaries with others in your life, whether they are your parents, your siblings, your friends, your boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, spouse, partner, significant other, or anybody else like your boss in your life, if you've had a difficult time setting and maintain boundaries with those people, any people in your life, you need to listen to this now. You really need to hear this now. Okay, so let's break this down, shall we? Boundaries, when you set a boundary, it is for you. The boundary is not for the other person. And that is where we have a misconception about the point and purpose of boundaries. And that's why we get fearful. A boundary is for you. So let me give you an analogy so that you can better understand how boundaries work. So when you have a house or an apartment or a condo and you have a lock and maybe a security system on your house, that is your personal boundary. It is telling others, you cannot just walk in my front door. No, you have to knock first. Or maybe you have to ring the doorbell. Or maybe you have to look into the camera if you have a security system with a camera. You cannot just walk willy-nilly into my house because there's a boundary there. So the boundary really is for you. It's not for the other person. It's for you so that you know what you're getting into. You know who you're letting in your house. So that is why boundaries exist. Okay? So when you set a boundary and you enforce that boundary, it is what you have decided for your life. And so if you feel guilty about that, it's because you're projecting your boundary onto somebody else as if you've assigned them a specific thing according to you, when it really has nothing to do with that. It has to do with your safety, your security, your comfort level, any of those things, as well as just your general well-being. So when you set a boundary, it's just saying to the other person, this is where I end and this is where you begin. And you may not come closer than where I say I end without my permission. And that's basically how a boundary works. So let's suppose that you go to bed every night at 10 p.m. and you have a significant other. Hey, Miss 1072, thank you for the question. I love that. Thank you so much. I appreciate you being here. I'll get to that after we talk about boundaries. Okay, so if you, let's say, go to bed at 10 p.m. and you are telling a significant other, for example, who may work nights even, or maybe they get off work at 10 p.m. Okay, if you call me before 10, I will take the call. But if you call after 10 p.m., I'm going to be asleep, so I'm not going to take the call. And your significant other continues to call you after 10 p.m., you would set the boundary, reinforce the boundary by like shutting your phone off, turning your phone to silent, turning it on focus, and not answering the call. So that is a boundary. And even if another person tries to make you feel guilty for setting that boundary and reinforcing the boundary, after a while, if you are sure of this is what you are setting for your sanity, then you will feel much less guilty in doing that. Okay, so Miss 1072 says, Michelle, if you're in separation with your DM, is it appropriate to wish him a happy birthday? Oh my gosh, I get this question all the time. So thank you so much for your question. I really get this question all the time. The answer to that is it depends. It depends. I had been back and forth on that question. Excuse me. I've been back and forth on that question with when my twin flame and I were in like total separation at some point. And I always say that if you can wish them a happy birthday because you love them unconditionally and because you do not expect anything in return, then go ahead and wish them happy birthday. But if you are wishing them happy birthday because you wish them well-being, but also because you're kind of hoping that you will receive some communication in return, maybe a thank you, maybe an engagement in a conversation, then I would say that would not be a good idea to do that because your expectations are based on something conditional. So when we do something and we have our expectations based on something conditional, which most of us do, right? It's human to do that a lot of times. But if you have your expectations based on something conditional, then you're going to be anxious and disappointed the entire day if they do not respond to you. And it's going to make you bitter. It's going to make you frustrated. It's going to make you hopeless at the end of the day. And it's probably going to create more chaos in your life if you go into it with that mindset. Also, one thing to ask yourself is if you're about to text them or call them or whatever, ask yourself this question. is what I am about to do, is it providing love in my heart or is it providing fear? Like, am I fearful as I'm doing this? Am I anxious as I'm doing this? And if you answer that question and your feeling is more anxiety or fear when you're doing it, then again, refrain from doing it. So I hope that answered your question. And if you have other questions, by all means, please ask those questions. Okay, so I love that. I love engagement. That's why I'm here, guys. I love it when you guys engage and ask me questions. Again, any questions on any of my published books? Okay, so this is the next question. And the next question is based on my writings and why I write what I write. So the question is, what inspired you to start writing spiritual books? Oh, you're so welcome. You're so welcome, Miss 1072. What inspired me to start writing spiritual books is really crazy because I never in a million years intended to write spiritual books. So most of you don't know this, but I've been a writer for as long as I can remember. When I was really young, I was probably 8 years old, I was writing poetry, and a lot of poetry when I was 8 years old. When I was young, I always knew I would be an author. I always knew I wanted to write books. I was very crazy about writing. I would write all the time. I would read all the time. I read probably a book a day, like a novel every single day. I was always at the library, always checking out books. When it was the summertime and in elementary school, they would give you this big chart to follow. And if you read, I don't know what it was, like 30 books, 20 or 30 books, you would get like a prize, or you'd get like a little coupon book with coupons to local vendors. And that was for the whole summer. And often I would finish that whole list in like 2 weeks. So I was always an avid reader and a writer. And I began to write short stories in elementary, middle school, and high school. And then I began to write fiction books, actually. And so for a long, long time, I wrote fiction. And I went through the traditional method of trying to get a literary agent, going through traditional publishers. And I worked really hard at that, and nothing ever came of it. It's extremely difficult and competitive to get an agent to believe in you and your writing. And then when I had my thyroid cancer at 28, and I began to study Ayurveda, mind-body medicine from India, to help me to heal, and I began working with Dr. Deepak Chopra and his center. And I opened my own center in 2008, and I began to do Ayurvedic lifestyle consultations. And then I had clients asking me, like, how do you find out about Ayurveda and how can you make it easy? And there really wasn't any easy book on Ayurveda at that time. And that's when I decided to write The Wheel of Healing with Ayurveda. So that's how I got started writing spiritual books. I kind of fell into it because of getting sick when I was 28, working with Dr. Deepak Chopra, teaching Ayurveda, meditation, and yoga. And then it kind of took on a life of its own. So that is how I began writing spiritual books. All right. If you are joining me now, welcome. I'm so happy that you're here. If you have any questions pertaining to a spiritual awakening journey, twin flames, divine feminine, divine masculine, if you have questions pertaining to the chakras, yoga philosophy, Eastern philosophy, spirituality versus religion, anything to do with wellness, please, by all means, ask me those questions, and I will try my best, based on my experience and writings, to help answer you. Okay. So we've got time for a couple more questions, and I will start with some prompts if no one answers questions, because I have questions that are very commonly asked to me on my channel. Where did my other one go? So hold on, I was just trying to locate one. twin flame seems to be a very predominant topic on my channel. So let's go ahead and start with that. Oh, I put it over here. That's why I couldn't find it. Okay. All right. Oh, I like this one. How can I detach with love without giving up? This is a huge one. How can I detach with love without giving up? Now, this can pertain whether you are in a twin flame relationship or in separation, or whether there's just a specific person, like a specific person that you really love, or maybe you were with this person and then you guys separated or you broke up. So how can I detach with love? And I feel like when someone leaves us, when someone breaks up with us, when someone separates from us, while we might be loving that person, maybe even obsessed with that person, you also think a lot about the things that they did wrong in the relationship, or maybe they hurt you, or they ghosted you or blocked you, or maybe they didn't treat you as well as you had hoped to be treated. Or maybe you think about their flaws more often. Like, if only they would stop doing this and start doing this, then I feel like we could be back together. And I feel like detaching with love is more about understanding that maybe the situation that is at hand does not call for you guys to be together right now because of certain circumstances. Detaching with love is really focusing on what makes them an amazing person, what makes them a godlike person in the way of, we're all connected to source, whether you want to call source God, spirit, universe. And you're only focusing on the love that they have in their hearts, right? So you can say, yes, this person ghosted me, blocked me, maybe didn't want to be with me now, and I really love them, and they said they loved me, or maybe they made me believe that they loved me and they're not with me now. So I don't understand this. But when we look at them as saying, well, they're really a good person at their heart, that they really have good intentions, and maybe their ego is just getting in the way right now, or maybe their wounding is getting in the way, or maybe they're really triggered by something in our relationship and our connection, and they really just need to work through that. And so I'm going to give them the space necessary, and I'm not going to blame them, and I'm not going to guilt them, and I'm not going to think poorly of them, because maybe they're really protecting me as well. Like, maybe that they know their shortcomings and they're afraid of hurting me more. And so they would rather create space between us so that they can work on themselves and not hurt me further in this relationship. So I really feel like that is the way you can detach with love and not necessarily give up, and just saying to yourself, well, if they feel ready at some point to be back into a relationship with me, if they feel ready at some point to transcend those shortcomings that maybe they feel that they have, then I believe that they would come toward me with love and grace and maybe an apology as an example. But I don't have to keep thinking about them in a way that there's something missing, that there's lack, or that there's some anger or frustration. I'm just going to continue on loving myself and moving along my path. And when they decide to catch up, they get to catch up. And I think that's a really great way to detach with love. Okay, so I will answer one or two more questions if you guys have them. If you're joining me right now, say hello in the chat box. I'll be doing this about every 2 weeks. I'm going to switch to Tuesday nights at about 5:30 to 6 p.m. Pacific time. I'm not really sure the exact time yet, but Saturday mornings are kind of sacred for me. I usually I do my writing Saturday mornings, and I was just trying to test out the waters here for a Saturday morning. Hello, Blue Turquoise. Hi, thank you so much for joining. I'm so happy you're saying hello. I'm happy you're here. Do you have any questions for me? Do you have any questions about the twin flame journey, about divine feminine, divine masculine, about the chakras, about spiritual awakening, about dark night of the soul? Yeah, please ask a question. I would love that. So type your question, and when you're ready, I will address that question. So I was saying that I'm going to do it probably Tuesday nights. So probably Tuesday nights around 5:30 to 6 p.m. Pacific time. I won't start next week. Next Tuesday is my birthday. This coming Tuesday, December 2nd, is my birthday. So I would likely start it the Tuesday after that, probably around 6 p.m. So about going through an awakening and going through it while going through perimenopause, LOL. Okay, so what is your exact question about that? I'm interested in knowing. So that's an interesting one because, so while you're formulating your question, Blue Turquoise, I'm going to tell you, how does one cope with that feeling like I'm losing my mind sometimes? Yeah. So this is really interesting. I feel like, let me first give you my experience, then I'll directly answer that question. In 2020, when the whole entire planet shut down, and I was going through my own major spiritual awakening with my twin flame journey, and that started, like, that twin flame journey awakening started in 2018. But by 2020, it was still going pretty strong. Like, by the time the pandemic happened, I was also going through perimenopause, and I was having a lot of symptoms at that time as well, like physical symptoms as well. And I think, like, being isolated, being in this weird space and time where people were kind of freaking out about many different things, and also being online a lot more, because really that was our only option in 2020, right? Was to be online, and to be online and like chatting with others about spiritual awakening symptoms, if you will, and chatting with others about, is this physical? Like, should I go to my doctor? Or is this spiritual awakening symptoms? And I think that some of it might have been spiritual awakening symptoms. But then what I found out later was that a lot of the physical things that were happening in my body were perimenopausal symptoms. And it really wasn't until I got on estrogen and progesterone. So I go through a company, it's bioidentical estrogen and progesterone. I go through a company called Winona, and the website is BY Winona, like Winona. I don't think it's like Winona Ryder. So it's WINONA by Winona. And you have your appointment online. You can pay out of pocket. I think they might take insurance or whatever, but once I got on the estrogen and progesterone cream, then I could really differentiate between, is this perimenopausal symptoms or is it spiritual awakening symptoms? Because they can feel very similar in many ways. Because I mentioned this in the videos this week, actually. When you are going through a Kundalini awakening process or a spiritual awakening process. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, Blue Turquoise, if you started HRT, that's amazing. And it'll probably take about 3 months before you feel like a ton better. Then you will be able to tell the difference between, is it ascension symptoms or is it perimenopause? Yeah, so I feel like when you're going through a Kundalini awakening and you're not 100% healed yet, because as you know, if you're on the twin flame journey or you've come to a spontaneous spiritual awakening, having the chakras be cleared through your spiritual awakening can feel very jarring to the body. And a lot of people have a lot of physical symptoms because of the shock to the body, because the calibration of the energy is so different. Like, the vibrational frequencies are different. And so a lot of people like lose their hair. So that happens a lot, but it also happens with perimenopause. And sometimes it even happens to women who are starting HRT. They'll start to lose their hair. And it's not because HRT is not working. It's actually because It's just anytime your body is readjusting to hormonal balance/imbalance, that can sometimes happen. But it can also happen during ascension symptoms. So yeah, it's a little bit crazy. I would say if you're meditating daily, if you're meditating twice daily, that really helps with the mental symptoms, right? It does help with the mental symptoms, but sometimes if there's hormonal imbalances because of many things, right? It could be because of thyroid, it could be because of perimenopause or any other things, that too can sometimes contribute to the mental unrest that you're feeling. Also, we're in winter if you're in the northern hemisphere. A lot of people get seasonal affective disorder. I know I got it when I was living in a cold climate. I would suffer from seasonal affective disorder pretty much for about 3 months. It did not help my mental well-being when I was living in winter states. When I moved to Southern California, that changed a lot. Blue Turquoise says, yes, meditation helps a lot. Okay, that is amazing. So glad you meditate. Love it. All right. So does anyone have any other questions for me about any topics relating to the chakra system, twin flames, spiritual awakening, alcoholism, addiction and recovery, relationships in general, spiritual relationships, or yoga philosophy, Eastern philosophy, health and well-being? I would love that. If you have any questions, I will answer them for you. Oh my. I'm going to answer one more if no one has questions, because I think on the silent live stream, I actually answered this question. That was a crazy time last week, I'll tell you. I'm really trying to, so I'll show you guys the mic. So I have a fancy mic. This is the Rode Podcast Pod mic, and it's the USB pod mic, which means that you don't necessarily need an interface, like something to hook into the computer. It should directly work as you hook it into the computer. And for some reason, YouTube Studio really doesn't like it. So this question is great. I love this question because so many people on the spiritual journey are sensitive souls and are very caring and loving and nurturing, and they love to help other people, and they love to be with other people, and they love their relationships and their family and their friends. How do I know if I'm being loving or codependent? How do I know if I'm being loving or codependent? I love this question. So this might take a long time to answer, but I'm going to give a shorter answer here. And if there's interest in understanding the difference between being loving and being codependent, then I will go ahead and expand upon that in future live streams, because I love interacting with you guys. This is like the best part of YouTube for me. And I know I'm not doing tarot readings anymore on YouTube in the live streams like I used to do, but I really love interacting with you guys. Okay. So this is a big one for me. I would say that prior to my twin flame journey, I was probably the biggest codependent that existed on the planet. And most of us in relationships act on some level with some level of codependency. And codependency, I would say, is basically with strings attached. Let's just put it that way. Codependency means with strings attached. Codependency is a very conditional type of love. And like I said, most people, if not all people on the planet, tend to operate in this way because that's the way they're taught. So when we are evolving spiritually, when we are growing spiritually, when we are getting more in touch with our higher spiritual self, and we are anchoring more of that unconditional love into our being and into our relationships, we become less and less codependent because we are more loving ourselves and moving into interdependence in relationships, which can very much feel a little bit like detachment, which it's not. It's like, I have my life, you have your life. I do what I want to do because I love my life and I love myself. You can do what you want to do because you love yourself and love your life. Let's get together and decide if we're going to be in a relationship, you know? So it's not about, I need you, I want you, I have to be with you forever and you complete me. It's more about like, I'm a whole individual who loves myself. Let's see if, you know, you can be a whole individual who loves yourself. So being loving versus being codependent is, can you do, and this is what I was mentioning when the first person in the live stream asked about wishing their twin flame a happy birthday, even though they're in separation. And basically I said, if you can do it with unconditional love, then by all means do it. So that's really how you know if you're being codependent or loving. It's, can I do anything for anybody with no strings attached? Can I do it with no strings attached? Now, of course, we are in loving connections with people. And, you know, sometimes we would expect that there is reciprocity, right? That's part of a healthy relationship. But there is no expectations of that, right? In a loving gesture, it's like, I'm doing this out of the kindness of my heart just because I really want to. And you're not expecting anything necessarily in return. You're not expecting any type of behavior in return. You're just doing it because you want to do it. And a codependent action would be, I'm doing this because I'm hoping to get something back for it. Or I'm doing it because I hope to hook the person in. Meaning, like, if I am their source of well-being, then they are going to come to me in the future to do something for them or be with them. That way I know I won't be alone, or I won't be abandoned, or I won't be insignificant in their lives. That is a very codependent way of being. And it's also manipulative in many ways, right? Because you're trying to hook someone into being with you, being in a relationship with you, or not changing their mind, which is insane, right? We go into relationships in general, whether it's friendships, significant other relationships, or even parental and child relationships, trying to make sure that we secure the relationship by these strings attached actions or words. And it's manipulative because, like, people can change their mind. You can change your mind, right? You're growing constantly, you're learning, and so is the other person. And so if a person says, I'm going to be together with you forever and ever and ever, they're pretty much lying because they don't know that. They could wake up tomorrow and feel 100% different, right? So yeah, it takes some time and effort to be able to understand, is this action based on something loving and unconditional, or is it based on me wanting to get something out of it, or me having fear, right? And that's really the other component of that, is like, am I fearful? And that's why I am doing this. And really, that's what people pleasing is all about, right? People pleasing is like, I'm kind of fearful that they might not be my friend, they might not want to be with me, or I'm fearful of the backlash, or I'm fearful of what they might think of me if I don't do this, or I'm fearful of not being a part of the group. So usually that's a lot what people pleasing is about, which is also a very, very codependent way of being, right? So that's how you tell the difference between being loving and being codependent. So I want to thank you guys so much for those of you that have joined me today. It's really exciting to be back in the game, so to speak. And I will be doing this probably around 6 p.m. Pacific time on Tuesdays every other week, starting the Tuesday following December 2nd. So that would be the 9th, I believe, of December. I want to thank you so much for tuning in, for watching my videos and supporting the work that I do. Thank you so much for interacting. If you've been interacting over the chat, that is much appreciated. And I love interacting with you guys so much. I really appreciate you all. Thank you if you're watching this on replay as well. Put your comments and questions in the comment section below. And I'll see you guys next time. Have a great weekend.